Gentlemen, we are back following some technical difficulties regarding Project Cars 2 and the PlayStation Network. However, business as usual as we enter week 5 here, kicking it off, of course, with the FMTCC. Round 5 here at Oschersleben A course, right in the centre of Germany. And as you've just been able to see on the front of your screen, Pro Fubby reigning supreme so far in that practice session. Let me get retired and get onto the monitors, and let's have a look who's going to jump out as we begin our 20 minutes of qualification. Does look as though Lecky's on his way out of the grids. In fact, we've got a few shakers and movers. That looks as though it's Old Smokey joining him alongside. And we've also got Al Axon as well, who's going to be the first one to enter the circuit. Take a look at Al, who was running pretty well out in the practice. We'll just pan that camera across and see as we come out of the modified pit exit here at Oschersleben. And little known course for a lot of our drivers. It's been a fresh experience in the touring cars. They're certainly cursing my name as they're struggling to get around this 14 curve 2.2 or almost 2.3 mile circuit. Very taxing, only really used in domestic racing out in Germany these days. Fell out of favour with some of the World Championships, but it's certainly a challenging circuit for these touring cars to really sink the teeth into. The race director is also very strict on penalties here as well, so they're going to have to try and keep within the confines of the track, and it's easier said than done with this circuit. If I bring up the track map for any of our viewers that maybe not quite as familiar with it, you can see here now Al Axon just making his way into the second sector through the Shell S's. Sorry, just into the third sector, should I say. This is one of the easiest sections of the course, coming into the final turn here into turn 14. And you can see there just on the left-hand side, that is the pit entrance. Huge pit lane for this circuit. It's going to be really taxing should anybody have to come in for damage repairs. But it's this first and second sector where it's all at. Let's jump into the cockpit of Al Axon as he brakes for this 90-degree left-hander, big curb on either side as well as he makes his way through there. You can see the car just understeering away from him ever so slightly as he bounces off and the rebound from that curb. So he comes around that sweeping bend called Hotel into Hasserode. Obviously looking to try and feel out his lines here. This is one of the more technical parts as he comes into what's known as triple. 3 left-handers. Need to make sure that you get the line just right to set yourself up for this big swept right-hander, which is turn 7. It's a short blip down. Choose the inside or outside lane for this chicane, which is turns 8, 9, and then into 10 for the longest straight. The back straight of the circuit. And this is where we joined Al first time round on his outlap. We'll wait and see what his lap times are going to come in. No times being set from the drivers yet, just finding the feet. 16 minutes and 42 seconds remaining of the session. 2 more corners and there is that pit entrance. The exit for the pit straight, you can just see it on the track map, comes out just on the midway through that swept second corner. So as we drop the map off, we'll join trackside. Al Axon, of course, goes up into provisional pole position, the only one to set a lap time so far. Let's have a look at Lecky in that number 2 Momo course, Renault Megane. He's just getting it all sorts of sideways there, pumping all sorts of unwanted heat into the tyres. This one's going to be a bit of a give-up lap, I think. Casey Redwood moves up into second place so far. 1.6 seconds so away from him as we see Lecky moving over to the side. That is DJ Leggy coming across the line alongside Old Smokey, it seems. Al Axon's moved up now, moved down into second place. Pro Fubby takes provisional pole. Kovkarl in third and Casey Redwood in fourth so far. Looks as though Deadly Hawk is currently at the bottom of the running order, struggling to get to grips with this one, the American. Currently running in 7th place, but 21 seconds away. That could well be an outlap, though. So So as I mentioned, this is race 5 in the Flux Motorsport Touring Car Championship, and if you missed last week's action at Silverstone, then what are you playing at? Get yourselves over to YouTube, make sure that you catch up on that either with the highlight video or with the full fat race, because that was an absolute cracker. Pro Fubby taking a triple threat in that one, the Triple Crown at Silverstone. He got the fastest lap, the pole position, and took the race victory as well, and that secured his seat up at the top of the championship so far. Finds himself at the top of the running order as we just switch over to Wadge there. Top of the championship with 129 points. The console is currently in second after his 4th place finish at Silverstone with 95 points. And then we're tied up for 3rd place between this driver that we're currently following and the number 25 Joaquin, which is Wadge. He's joined up with Jack de Menzies and the number 4 Zavima. Both those drivers on 89 points. Then we've got 11 points back towards Lecky 2000, who's a couple of points ahead of Alaxon, who's 6th in the championship. And then 9 points back is Kovkarl in 7th. We're then tied up for 8th place between 74 Ledge, who can't make it today. He's being replaced by Wardy. Once again, Wardy stepping in as a reserve driver. And then 9th place is Spankmeyer, really impressive after his 2nd place finish at Silverstone. That's been enough to put him up pretty much to halfway in the leaderboard, being joint 8th after only completing a couple of races. DJ Leggy is in 10th position, followed by Old Smokey and Casey Redwood, who actually, Old Smokey got his career best finish in the touring cars with a 6th place finish, and Redwood did his season's best with an 8th place finish last week at Silverstone. Green Gaming is then 13th in the running order, followed by Porscheman, and then Deadly Hawk at the bottom of the table. Not helped by his DNF at the last time around, but hopefully he can turn that around a little bit come this race. He has since improved his time. He's currently 5.9 seconds off the pace of Pro Fubby. Old Smokey is behind him, and Lecky looks as though he's yet to be able to set a clean lap so far. But Pro Fubby sits in provisional pole, followed by Wadge, and then the console in 3rd. Spankmeyer up alongside the console on that 2nd row, followed by Alaxon, Kovkarl, and then Wardy and Jack de Menzies currently in 8th place. Looks as though Kovkarl actually has just leapfrogged Spankmeyer, moving up into 4th position, starting to really get to grips with this tricky circuit, and maybe just gain a little bit too much speed there into turn 1. Let's have a look at the current champion in the FMTCC over at the console in the number 8 Actrol Vision. Just over a second off the pace of Pro Fubby at the moment, which shouldn't mean much because any mistakes around this circuit will soon see drivers changing places, much like what we saw at Silverstone. Plenty of change of positions there, except for the guy in front. Pro Fubby pretty much secured his position and then absolutely nailed it. So 12 minutes left of action here in the qualifying session, and then we're going to be getting it underway with 45 minutes of German racing to kick off our little whistle stop tour in Germany. We have of course got the Nürburgring Sprints circuit coming up next Tuesday. Be sure to make sure that you don't miss that one by hitting the notification and that subscribe button to our YouTube channel. Make sure that you keep on top of all of the action that we're going to be bringing you through this week. And as we have a little look down through the week, GT1s are heading over to Road America, as quite a few of our drivers are as well, as we see actually there the console moving up into 2nd place. He's now just 8/10 away from Pro Fubby. But yeah, plenty of Road America to come this week. GT1s kick it off for our next race on Thursday. Join Lecky live from 8 p.m. UK time, or around about 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for that one. And then our GTEs also head on over to Road America on Friday evening. If you're watching in America, that's 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or the early hours of Saturday morning if you're watching it here in the UK or Europe. The LMP2s then take on the very tricky, always popular Bathurst Mount Panorama circuit. That one's going to be an absolute cracker, watching those LMP2 cars scream it around the hilltops of Bathurst. And then the Indies, once again, head on over to Road America. That is coming live and direct to you Saturday evening, Eastern Standard Time, 8 p.m. our usual time. GT3s head on over to Sportsland Sugo for their Round 5 visit, and the stock cars are all set for a night race at Daytona's Oval Circuit. That one's also going to be a cracker. Be sure to catch that one if you're watching from an American time zone, or if you're a bit of a night owl and still awake at 1 a.m. Monday morning here in the UK. Back over to today's action though. Profubby still sitting out on pole position, not done many laps either, so he's pretty much happy with that one. Maybe just taking himself off to psych himself up for the race. One lap and done from Profubby. Rest of the drivers putting in their lap numbers. They're all sort of stacking up. Looks as though Green Gaming late to the action. He's going to have enough time to be able to get out and set a couple of laps though. Maybe get himself away from that bottom of the grid space, as we see Wadge there just getting it a little bit wrong. Ends up coming into the pits. Let's have a look over to Lecky in that Momo. Let's see what he can put in as he comes across the line. Once again, no improvement there from Lecky, but I'll keep an eye out on his sectors as he makes his way around for his 5th lap here in the qualification session. And if you were wondering what went on last week, it's probably because you weren't yet subscribed to our social media channels. And to make sure that you don't miss out on any of the news, reviews or updates from the community, be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram or Twitter, where we'll try and keep you updated with all of the postings, the Overtake of the Week section, as well as keeping you updated with any new things that we've got lined up, polls that are being put out, etc. So 8 minutes remaining inside the session. Not much to move on yet. It looks as though the console and Al Axon going out for another bite of the cherry, trying to make some improvements. Looks as though Lecky is not going to improve this time around. His first sector doesn't suggest it anyway. 30.8 from Lecky at the moment, whereas the current top lap is around about 6/10 quicker in that first sector. Does look as though Lecky might have just invalidated his lap again, and I do suspect that this is going to be the problem. I expect that there's going to be quite a lot of penalties being applied to this by the end of the race. We will have to try and find a little gap in any of the action just to bring up the timing boards as we have a look now. This is why I try and avoid it so much. Pretty much taking up all of the screen, but we can see here everybody's gotten away. No grid penalties to speak of through the qualification session. Let's have a look over to the console. He's currently on an outlap. If we bring up the map as well, let's see whether or not it looks as though he's in clean air at the moment. So that's going to be a bit of a bonus for him as he gets a bit of dirty sand onto the rear quarter of that Renault Megane. Fantastic camera angle there, buried into the curb, and I'm sure that's going to bring us some rather thrilling action in around about 7 or 8 minutes time when we get this race underway. As ever, let me know your predictions for the race as well, and it's starting to get to that time where we can start to put feelers out for predictions for the championship. Got 3 drivers currently in the running for it. Profubby obviously has the massive advantage with currently 36 points lead. Sorry, I beg your pardon, 34 points lead on the console, but it can all change around. We've got the second half of the season to come, and it's certainly not written in the stars just yet. Glad to see McToasty on the stream, and Claire as well, who's also sharing the hate for this track. Trust me, Claire, I've heard it from all of the drivers in the warm-up asking me why I selected this one. I'm pretty partial to it, but then again, maybe the touring car is a completely different beast. Don't forget, most of this grid front-wheel drive, except for the BMWs. We've got 2 BMWs out on track today with DJ Ledgy and Deadly Hawk. Deadly Hawk actually not doing so bad at the moment. 13th place. He hasn't made any big improvements, but looking at the sector times, actually, Josh looks as though after that coming together actually with Old Smoky, he was actually on for a hot one. His sector 1 time was looking pretty tasty. I think it's going to fall away from him though after that contact. Did look as though he was going quite slow through the chicane. Yep, and there it is, Sector 2 time down by about 5, almost 6 seconds on Pro Fubbies, which is a shame because he has got purple in Sector 1. Pro Fubbies still inside the pits at the moment, so looks as though he's really comfortable with that lap. It's going to be quite a slow out lap here at Oschersleben, so it's going to be a small window of opportunity if he does want to get out on track once again. And then we see Wadge crossing the line. 4.8 seconds back after that contact. He's going to have another go at it though. He should have enough time for maybe 3 laps looking at the time deltas. And as we admire the view and see Lecky trying to catch up to the back of him, let me remind you again, ladies and gents, that our Flux Motorsport shop is now open, as well as the launch of the new website. If you haven't seen it yet, by all means, get yourselves on over to fluxmotorsport.com. Check out the new design of the website, check out the shop, and also if you're watching this with a view to getting stuck into the action immediately, or maybe get yourself signed up for next season, then that is the place to do it. www.fluxmotorsport.com. Let us know what you think of our new design. We will be building upon it in the near future, but for now we've got all sorts of racing action to concentrate on as our season starts to draw out to a close into the second half. Much like this, as we see, just getting a little bit loose there. Wadge is making an improvement. He isn't able to match his Sector 1 that he got last time around, but he is currently looking pretty even with Pro Fubby's time. I think we're going to see Wadge jump into second place with this lap. Let's see what he managed to do into the final corner as he crosses the line. It isn't in the end. Looks as though he's just lost out. He goes back into the pits. We might just see a little splash and dash from Wadge there, get himself back out on track and maybe get one more bite of the cherry. Toasty making the observation as well. Not many places to get past in Sector 2. There's not many places to go wrong in Sector 2 either. Really tricky section indeed as we take it through the sort of triple. In fact, all the way out of the second corner, you might have people just sort of placing the car alongside for that first corner, that first 90-degree left-hander. May be able to sneak up the inside for that, but after that, it's pretty much a running drag race. If you can get a draft or if you've got a bit more exit speed, you might have an opportunity, but you can see there that big circular curb, that's bound to knock a few people off kilter through this race. As we track the console running around in his second to last effort to try and beat Pro Fubby's time, this is the section really that both myself and McToasty recognise as being very tricky. These 3 left-handers to kick it off with. No margin for error there. Certainly not going to see 2 cars going wide through these lines. Unless somebody makes a mistake, and all the way through into that right-hander. This is where it does start to open out. You might see a couple of cars maybe jostling for position, but there's only one way through the S's into that chicane section, and then it's all just about the drag out of the corner. Maybe get a draft on if you can. We'll see whether or not people are geared up differently, but it's going to be interesting indeed. You can definitely try and sneak up the inside though into this right-hander. It will give you the advantage into the following left. So with 1 minute remaining of the session, Pro Fubby has kept it to 1 lap, and 1 lap has been enough for the current championship leader. The console's done his best to try and knock him off the perch, but it's all to no avail. He's got himself very close to his personal best, but not able to make too much of a dent into Pro Fubby's current pole position time at the moment. Let's have a look over to Wadge. Let's see where he's going out at the moment. Looks as though he's actually out on a cold lap, so this is just to try and get his bearings a little bit, maybe done some car adjustments. Kovkarl is just ahead of him though. Let's have a look at his sector times as it comes in. Currently about 1 second off the pace of Pro Fubby in Sector 1. Does look as though Lecky 2000 is finally starting to hook a lap together. He's about half a second off the pace of Pro Fubby, but 30.760, which is a session best from Lecky in Sector 1, and his Sector 2 doesn't look too bad either. Let's have a look over to Lecky actually as he comes around the penultimate corner. Looks as though this is going to be the final lap for him as the countdown timer reaches 0. Lecky now just about to cross the line. Comes across the line from 7th position, and there's no movement from him. He remains in 7th. Let's have a look over to Kovkarl, who actually looks as though he's coming into the pits. He is indeed. So let's have a look at Wardy. We've not been able to catch Wardy so much in this session. Running in his teammates' likeness with Spankmeyer in the number 66 SRT, currently running in 9th position. Looks as though he is still on for a hot lap. He's going to be one of the final drivers out there. Looks as though we've got DJ Leggy in the BMW still out on track, as well as Green Gaming, who's yet to set a lap here. It's worth noting as well that Pro Fubby in the practice session managed to get a 132.746. Looks as though in the qualification session he's not been able to match that, but it does show that both of those laps are pretty consistent. So Pro Fubby looks as though he's done the legwork here and is looking pretty au fait with Oschersleben A. So Wardy's split time was looking pretty good. Let's see whether or not it's enough to bump him up the running order. Looks as though he's going to slot in right behind his teammate as we have a look at the starting grid order for today's race number 5 in the FMTCC. Pro Fubby picks up yet another pole position with the console running alongside him on the front row of the grid. Wadge in 3rd place with Al Axon in 4th alongside him, and then it's 5th to Kovkarl with Jack Menzies chasing him up and maybe benefiting from the inside line into turn 1. Lecky in 7th place, followed by Spankmeyer, and then Wardy right behind him in his teammates SRT. Casey Redwood in 10th position, not a bad starting position for him, but he has got a BMW right behind, which will spell curtains if DJ Leggy manages to get it off the line cleanly. Porsche Man in 12th position, ahead of Green Gaming, who did manage to set a lap in the end, and that lap was quicker than Deadly Hawks, who is ahead of Old Smoky for the start of this one. So 2 minutes worth of setup time, and then we're going to get our race underway as I retire, get myself into the box. Let's have a little run through and remind you of the liveries that we're going to have on action today so you can just see who is who. We'll start off with Pro Fubby out in pole position in the number 55 eMotorsports Renault Megane. The console in his favoured number 8 Actual Vision Renault Megane. And then Wadge in the number 25 Hakeen Motorsport. I'm going to stop saying Megane because you can read it out on the screen. Al Axon is next in the running order. He's running the number 12 Air Bubbles this season, followed by Kovkarl, who is in the number 20 PCCF. Jack Menzies in the number 4 Zavima, ahead of Lecky in the number 2 Momo Course. Spankmeyer in the 65 SRT with Wardy in the 66 SRT. Then Casey Redwood in the number 50... Oh, I beg your pardon, I've lost his number. Yeah, it's the number 62 Horbsner Automotive. And then DJ Leggy in the iBack BMW, number 68, missing his old man in his car's likeness this week. Porsche Man next in the number 53 Cavoul Motorsport, followed by Green Gaming in the Monster Energy. That is number 87. Deadly Hawk in the Mist BMW, not too sure on the number on that one, apologies for that. And then Old Smoky in the number 7 Actual Vision, much like the consoles, just in the green colour. So let's get ourselves back on focused on the leader. 14 seconds of tinker time, ready to go, and then we're going to get this race underway. Here come the lights. And away here, race 5 in the Flux Motorsport Touring Car Championship. Looks to be a good start from the console. Looks as though he's just about to take first place away from Pro Fubby, but Pro Fubby with the inside line on this one. Not much movement from the rest of the pack as we see, oh, big bump there from Jack de Menzies. Looked as though he caught the rear. It may have been a Spankmeyer, maybe catching up Al Axon, but all the rest of the pack look as though they've gotten away, and what a fantastic camera angle that is, bringing you most of the action there. It looks as though Wardy's actually slipping down the grid. He slipped down to 10th position. Deadly Hawk's also fallen right down to the back of the pack. In fact, it looks as though he's barely even gotten away. He finds himself 34 seconds away from the leader. Not sure what's gone on there. No damage to the front of that car, so it looks as though whatever it was self-inflicted. But Pro Fubby leads the race ahead of the console. Wadge in 3rd place, followed by Al Axon. Got all sorts of close proximity racing going on here. Let's jump into the cockpit of Lecky 2000. That is Jack de Menzies ahead of him with Wadge, and then Al Axon being chased down as well. And if we go trackside, you'll see that Lecky is also being closely followed by Spankmeyer, Kovkarl, and also Wardy as well. See the big drift coming through that as we enter into the S's. Balance of these cars is going to be severely tested when the tyres do start to wear. It's a lovely clear day here in Germany. We are just about 20 miles west of Magdeburg here, right in the heart of the Rhineland, and yeah, the sun is shining, weather is definitely sweet, lovely springtime vibes as we see Lecky there making a little move up onto the inside, thinks twice about it as we see a big lock up there from Al Axon, and Wadge is now able to dial up the pressure, but Lecky definitely having a little look up the inside of Jack de Menzies there, thought better of it as we see let's focus up on Kovkarl trying to chase down Wardy as well. You see Wardy there going all sorts of defensive on Kovkarl, and looks as though we've got Jack de Menzies trading places. In fact, it is with Wadge. Looks as though Wadge has just dropped down a position. I'm not sure what went on, but he's still right up there in with the fight at the moment. Pro Fubby, meanwhile, has managed to build up almost a 2-second lead to the console. The console has also got quite a bit of a gap forming up between himself and Al Axon, just ahead of the car that we're focused on at the moment. Let's jump on over to Wadge and let's go into the cockpit with him. That is Lecky ahead and Jack de Menzies just ahead of him as we come down the break-in through Stadion Gerard into this final sector. You can see Lecky's rear of the car looking very loose. I do know from plenty of years racing with him, that is how he likes it. He can hold it pretty well. Well, that is going to start to cook those rear tyres. Certainly putting the pressure on Jack de Menzies, though, trying to force a mistake here. We focus over to Pro Fubby, our race leader. You can see the gap that he's been able to build up to the console, looking pretty comfortable. That is also Al Axon as well in 3rd place, who looks as though he's going to be in for a good finish, provided that he can build upon that current lead. Back down to the battle for 4th place, though. Jack de Menzies still holding off Lecky. Looks as though Wadge is just slipping away ever so slightly from these two. Looks as though a potential slowdown there, maybe. Either way, Lecky has been able to get up alongside. If he doesn't close that door, that's going to allow Wadge straight on through. Wadge has been suffering with some brake pedal issues in practice. Does look as though that's potentially sorted itself out. If you do see him braking uncharacteristically, it could well be a bit of a hardware fault. Oh, as we see, it looked as though Jack de Menzies got far too much curb, or maybe a bit of a nudge, because I can see Lecky there just waiting up. Now maybe he got bounced off as well, because Lecky has lost out big time there. Slips down to 9th place, so Kovkarl and Spankmeyer have moved on up. So has Wardy. Wardy, the big gainer from that mistake for sure. It did look as though Jack de Menzies just went a little bit wide, bounced off the curb, and looked as though Lecky almost followed him through it. It looks as though Wardy runs deep. Spankmeyer then takes that position, and looks as though Jack de Menzies is going to apply the pressure as well around the outside. Looks as though he's holding on to that one. He has got the inside line on the next corner, and it's a double right-hander as well, so he's going to retain that position as we see Lecky there, elbows out, forcing his way through ahead of Kovkarl. And Kovkarl sees himself slip down into 9th place as we've got a line of 5 cars forming a train now. Spankmeyer ahead of these ones. So it's Spankmeyer leading to Jack de Menzies, Wardy, and then Leckie. Leckie looks as though he's been able to do Wardy there under braking. Fantastic move from Leckie. Late on the brakes, just got his car turned in just in time. Forced a bit of a counter steer from Wardy, it seems. And that is now Leckie moving back up into 7th place, trying to build upon the positions that he lost through that slight mistake. Non-stop action as ever here in the touring cars. 6 minutes in and I'm already starting to lose my voice. What a race we've got. Pro Fubby leading by 2.5 seconds now to the console as we see Wardy there making a mistake, having to run across the grass. He's going to have to rejoin, but he's going to be joined much further back than where he left the circuit. Got focused up onto Spankmeyer, currently running in 5th, had a great race last week, finishing 2nd in only his 2nd race, I believe. He's currently leading to Jack de Menzies. You can see the blue car of Wadge ahead, that Hakeem Motorsport just ahead in the foreground. You've just seen him there flashing left to right. Currently about 4 seconds back from him, but let's keep an eye out on the lap times. These sectors from Spankmeyer are currently just slightly edging ahead of Wadge, whereas the console has just set the purple in sector 3, so the console's also trying to push pretty hard to try and reduce that deficit to Pro Fubby. As we even off, let's have a little look at what's going on a little bit further back. Looks as though Kovkarl is trying to make gains on Jack de Menzies. Leckie is also trying to push his way up as much as he can. Big lockup of brakes there, as expected, into that 90-degree left-hander. Hard onto the braking to try and make sure that you don't lose out too much momentum. You can see there's plenty of tyre smoke coming in on turn in through these front-wheel drive cars. Really tricky circuit this for the front wheelers, and it's going to really play havoc with the tyre wear. Don't forget, our championships do run with accelerated tyre wear, all of them except the Indy cars, because that is just a little bit too mean. Those things love to chew rubber. So with the accelerated settings on, any little sort of locking up of the wheels or maybe hard throw into corners is going to accelerate the heat and wear from those tyres, and come the end of the race it's going to get even more slippery than it might already appear at the moment. So Pro Fubby leading to the console. We've got Al Axon in 3rd place, followed by Josh in 4th, Spankmeyer in 5th, Jack de Menzies 6th, Kovkarl, who we're currently tracking around the circuit, in 7th place, followed by Leckie, then Wardy in 9th, followed by DJ Ledgy in 10th, Casey Redwood in 11th, Old Smokey in 12th, who's actually made pretty big gains after after starting this race at the back of the pack. Green Gaming in 13th, followed by Porscheman, and then Deadly Hawk, currently battling it out with Porscheman, it seems. Let's have a look over to what these two back runners are doing. It's BMW versus Renault Megane in very similar liveries, as Deadly Hawk looks as though he's about to make that move up the inside. Battling going on still through the rest of the grid, as Deadly Hawk looks as though he maybe just pulled out of that one, or just not able to carry the same amount of speed as the Megane through that right-hander. So Porscheman continues to hold it up, although he has just run a little bit wide, and that is going to allow Deadly Hawk through up into 14th position here. Back to the action a little bit further up the pack. Jack de Menzies is coming under increased pressure from Kovkarl. We can see Kovkarl's lap times have really come in that last lap. 134.465 from this guy in 7th. Compare that to Jack de Menzies' 137.4. You can see how that gap has really closed down, and also Spankmeyer has been able to build upon his lap, and maybe a mistake from Wadge as well. That distance, only 2 seconds between those two now, between 4th and 5th place. Does look as though Al Axon also struggled, as did the console. In fact, I'm not going to believe these lap times. Actually, looking at my sectors on RS Dash here, does look as though they're a lot more even. So I'm just going to discount the sector times that you're seeing up on that left-hand side of the screen. They're definitely wrong, and it looks as though they're now falling back into sync. Looks as though we've got a bit of a battle on our hands between Wardy, and looks as though DJ Ledgy in the BMW, the iBack, starting to make inroads on Wardy now. Less than a second in it. It looks as though the the Beamer might have the legs as well coming out of that final corner. Don't expect the BMW to be able to brake quite as well as the Renault. Certainly not going to handle that left to right transition quite as well as the front wheel drive Megane. Megane, of course, able to put the power down and utilise that front wheel drive. Differentials will be set up on the front wheels as well, so that will give it a bit of a balance. So Profubby continues to lead the race. He's now got almost 4.5 seconds to the second place of the console. Let's have a look what's going on between Jack de Menzies and Kovkarl meanwhile. These guys have been very, very close throughout the first half of this race. We jump on board with Kovkarl. Let's have a look at the differences in lines. We see Jack de Menzies there just picking up a little bit of dirt, and you can see what that tiny little mistake allows Kovkarl to do. Jack de Menzies goes for the inside on the defensive, but it's not going to be enough. Kovkarl just carrying too much speed after that slight mistake from Jack de Menzies, and it's done enough to get him up into 6th place. Meanwhile, looks as though DJ Leggy has been able to move up into 9th place ahead of Wardy. Wardy is now going to come under pressure from Casey Redwood. These Curb Clipper fans will be happy. I know that Redwood does have quite a few followings from his and our good friends at Curb Clippers. So I'm sure they'll be cheering him on if he manages to get up into that 10th place. Let's have a look over at how it's going. So Casey Redwood in the blue and white livery, number 52 Horbsner, or 62 Horbsner it is, I beg your pardon. Currently chasing down the 66 SRT of Wardy, who in turn is trying to chase down that Eibach BMW of DJ Leggy as well. So with 33 minutes remaining of the session, we're almost coming into the first third of this race. Still plenty of laps and time to go here at Oschersleben. And a bit of an observation there from McToasty, spotting that Spankmeyer's using the same strategy as last time. Maybe just a bit of tyre conservation, balancing his laps and trying to keep out the penalties. And this is as good a time as any. Let's have a look at those penalties and how they've stacked up. Remember, folks, the race director is pretty strict here. And there is the evidence. Profubby with 1, the console with 6 seconds worth of penalty, Alaxon with 2, Wadge with 3. Next big one up there is Jack de Menzies, but as McToasty predicted, Spankmeyer and Kovkarl currently keeping the nose clean, as is Old Smoky. And into the final few minutes of this race, we'll check it again. That could be really beneficial. We might see some people dropping huge amounts of places if the race stays as tight as it is through the midfield. Let's give our current race leader a little bit of airtime. Let's have a look at Profubby as he conservatively almost potters around this. We've seen him in full-on quali trim, setting those 132s. Looks as though he's settled nicely into a race pace of 134.5 there or thereabouts. And that is enough to just keep on slowly building. He's not been able to make any massive gains on the console over the last couple of laps. We are just about midway through lap 9 here, but I do think it's all sort of poised by Profubby. He's running his own race, and he's now approaching the back marker, it seems, of Porsche-man. That'll be a nice easy position to take up as Porsche-man just holds the racing line, but he did let off the throttle, and there's an easy inside line there which isn't too detrimental at all from Porsche-man. So moving nice and clear of the race leader. Let's get back to the action that's going down the grid though. Looks as though Spankmeyer's persistence has paid off as he approaches the number 25 Hakeem of Wadge at the moment. You can see Wadge's brakes may well just be stuck on there. As I mentioned, he was complaining that his brakes were sticking. Just see those brake lights on ever so slightly early to where we'd expect him to start braking. That'd explain some big spikes that we might see in lap times. But you can see he's been able to build ever so slightly on the deficit to Al Axon, it seems. Al currently running in 3rd place. He's got 3 seconds worth of lead, almost 3.5 seconds worth of lead. But that was previously a little bit higher, around about 4.5 seconds. Also, we've got a return to the action as Wardy is trying to take that place back from DJ Leggy at the moment. Just to remind you, Wardy in the SRT Megane chasing down the IBAC BMW of DJ Leggy. See, very similar line there between the two. I would expect that BMW to be able to hold on the outside a little bit more, but that being said, I can't drive that BMW for toffee, so big respect to the guys to get it going. I know if you can get the balance of the car set up right, it's an absolute monster. The Renault Megane much easier to drive, being front-wheel drive, but you will not find a bigger imbalance off the start line in any of the other car classes really in this game compared to the BMW against that Renault Megane. Off the starting blocks, it's no competition at all, but being able to build on that lap after lap, that's where the tricky part comes in for the Bimmer. So, looks as though we've got a return to the action as well between Jack de Menzies and Kovkarl. Flip back over to that. That is Jack de Menzies in the green Zavima Motorsport chasing down Kovkarl in the number 20 PCCF. Looks as though he's maybe able to make inroads through the twisty stuff, but maybe Kovkarl's just got the gear ratio set a little bit different in that lead car. Maybe it's just he's getting a little bit of a cleaner exit perhaps out of Saxon-Anhalt, the final corner of this one. It is a lot trickier than it looks. You need to have your approach angle perfectly set up, otherwise you are going to scrub your speed off for what is the longest straight of the circuit. Oh, as we see, was that a mistake or was it a back marker? It might well have been a back marker actually of Porscheman, I believe, moving out of the way. I think it was. I think it's the back marker of Porscheman just moving out of the way. I thought there was a big mistake being made. I can just see it on my replay on my laptop. And it was indeed. So Kovkarl and Jack de Menzies continue to duke it out. We're going to see a bit of a draft here from Jack de Menzies. Don't think he's close enough this time around to whether or not he's going to be able to bring it up through the third sector. Does look as though Kovkarl is pretty well planted. Not much tail happiness from that turquoise and white Renault Megane. In fact, it looks as though Jack de Menzies has potentially got a slowdown. We see him, he's lost all sorts of car lengths there through that third sector. I'm sure it'll be represented in the lap times. Kovkarl's just coming across the line, 137, Jack de Menzies 139.5, so yeah, loads of time lost in that third sector, and it's got to be down to slowdowns, I believe. Back over to the battle for 9th place. DJ Leggy is still being hassled by Wardy. I think he was just moving out the way there potentially, but not sure. Big jut. Trying to hold it off as we hear Wardy right onto the limiter very early on there. Whether or not he's still in 5th or whether or not that's the limiter in 6th gear, he might have a very low ratio if that's the case. Yeah, he was torturing those valves in that Renault Megane. The line that I expected Leggy to take last time in the BMW. Hold it wider, cut right back in. I'd expect the rear wheel drive to have that advantage on the drive out of the exit. But does look as though he's got this one hooked up. We might well see a steward's inquiry. If it was a double weave, I'm sure Wardy won't hesitate to raise that one up if he feels like he's being blocked on the straight. Meanwhile, Spankmeyer is increasing the pressure. Looks as though Axon's made a mistake. He's dropped down into 5th position. Apologies that I've missed that, but that has allowed Wadge to move up into 3rd, and now Spankmeyer to be right up his exhaust pipe, challenging for that final podium. Just having a look through the race statistics so far, just trying to see who has set the fastest lap time. And it is currently Pro Fubby holding the fastest lap of the race. It's 1:33.332 so far. I will expect a bit of a mad dash right at the end as the console and both Pro Fubby try and make sure that they secure themselves the fastest lap. Does look as though Spankmeyer has had a very costly mistake. He's fallen right off the back of them, at the back of Wadge here. And it looks as though if Al Axon isn't careful, he's going to find himself under increased pressure from Jack de Menzies to try and take 6th place. Does look as though Al Axon's got some pretty hefty aerodynamic adjustments to the front right of that Megane. Just wonder whether or not he's caught a bale maybe, or just caught the rear of somebody's car. I'm not too sure. We did miss when he slipped down the running order. Jack de Menzies doesn't care. All he has got his eyes on at the moment is increasing his current position. It does look as though Wadge has now found himself down into 7th position. So big moves here. Spankmeyer has since moved up into 3rd. Wadge has had an absolute nightmare. We'll flick over to him. It does look as though he's maybe just run himself off the circuit, because I can't see much damage on the front of that Joaquin Renault Megane. So yeah, God knows what's happened there. He's had an absolute mare, but music to Spankmeyer's ears, that's for sure. And Spankmeyer's going to see himself really progress up the championship table quick if he continues to score points like this. Up and set for his 2nd consecutive podium here, if he manages to keep it together in the final 23.5 minutes here at Oschersleben. And big drift from Wadge there. Wonder whether or not it was the brake pedal sticking on once again. We've seen him, I mean, look at his lap time, 1:53. We've seen him putting in pretty consistent 1:34, 35, 36s. But to get a 1:53 is really uncharacteristic. To also not have major damage to that car as well does suggest that something has gone frightfully wrong in the cockpit of that Renault Megane. Back over to the action for 4th place. It's Al Axon currently and remainingly holding off Jack de Menzies. Bit of cat and mouse going on between the two. Looks as though Jack is pretty quick through the corners, as we saw in his battle with Kovkarl earlier on in the race. Let's just see whether or not he's able to make that transpire out of the final corner. I think that's where he was going wrong last time. It looks pretty clean there from Jack de Menzies. Going to ride that draft, but he's not going to be able to get into a overtake position, I don't think. He's just having a little look up the inside, but there's not a chance he's going to be able to do it from that far back. He needs to keep himself clean on those curbs, and both drivers look as though they've got themselves through pretty cleanly. Looks as though Wardy has since fallen down as well down that running order. Casey Redwood has since moved up into 10th place. Wardy is trying to take that one back, but we'll keep our eyes out on the position of those two. So remember, folks, if you're watching this for the first time, a very warm welcome to you from all of us here at Flux Motorsport. If you're not too sure what it is that we do, we host clean sim racing as well as organised events and just a general sim racing and motorsport community for all those that do enjoy it. We run specifically on the PlayStation 4, but that doesn't matter if you are also an Xbox user and a PC user. You can just come in and enjoy a lot of friendly banter with some very like-minded people. And if you have already heard enough, then to join up, all you need to do is head on over to our website. It's www.fluxmotorsport.com, and you'll find all the information on the website about what it is that we do, how to join us, and you'll also find the links to our merchandise shop there, as well as we see Jack de Menzies now having a little chance up the inside. I think he's going to get this one done. It's going to be a bit of a drag, and there is a back marker in the way as well. Two good friends going toe-to-toe, the wheel-to-wheel here, so Jack de Menzies does have the advantage. However, that's only by line. It looks as though Al Axon has been able to out-drag him ever so slightly, maybe benefiting from the draft from Deadly Hawk in the BMW up ahead of them. Great bit of wheel-to-wheel, bumper-to-bumper action here from 4th and 5th place. We've got battles continuing all the way down the field, really. The only place it hasn't, and I do apologise to Fubby for not giving him the airtime, is up in 1st place as Jack de Menzies now makes a little move up the inside of Al. And the two actually come together. Big hit there. Classic touring car trade of paint. Jack Menzies still holding up onto the inside line, and Al Axon's going to have to rethink and regroup, come back at that one once again as they go through the S's. So after the Shell S is into turn 13, there isn't, sorry, that's the S is at 8 and 9, I beg your pardon. Isn't going to be much of an opportunity to overtake until we get down to the final sector. So whilst those two continue to duke it out, let's have a look at what's going on here with Casey Redwood. Here's number 62 Horbs now being chased down by Wardy in the 66 SRT. See both cars trying to skip their way through the chicanes here. 19 minutes worth of action remaining inside this one. Profubby leading the race to the console. Spankmeyer in third, with Jack Menzies now in fourth position after taking that from Al Axon. Doesn't look as though that battle is over. Al Axon is continuing to turn that screw. And I think we might also have another car behind. We do indeed. We have Kovkarl passing through, followed by Wadge. And we've got Lecky as well, just a bit behind them, currently avoiding the backmarker of Deadly Hawk, it seems. Jack Menzies has now been able to pull up a bit more of a comfortable lead. Currently riding about 1.5 seconds, and that's what we're talking about with comfort in the FMTCCs. These guys run so close for so much of the race that just having that extra half a second and not having the exclamation mark up against your name on the split times on the left hand side of your screen is enough to try and give you a little bit of a breather. However, you can just see the SRT of Spankmeyer just ahead. That's about 8 seconds time difference, which is pretty much a full straight. So it does look as though Spankmeyer is going to have to make a serious mistake to throw away a second podium on the bounce. And as these are balanced off, it does look as though Al Axon is now under pressure after slipping back from Jack Menzies from Kovkarl. Kovkarl's run a really good race today. Been really consistent in his lap times. He's pretty much held on to it. He did lose out on positions quite early on in the race, but he's since been able to give his head a wobble, get focused back in, and he's since been able to work his way up the grid after things have calmed down slightly. 17 minutes to go. He is under a little bit of pressure just behind him from Wadge. We know he's got plenty of pace as we see Lecky now coming into the pits. That is going to cost him dearly. I think this might see Lecky slip way outside of the top 10 because it's such a long pit lane here, and I can only assume that he's coming in for damage repairs as well, which is going to punish him even more. So it's going to be a long shot, a long stop to also put that nail in the coffin for him. See whereabouts he comes out come the end of this. Meanwhile, Kovkarl is also being hounded by Wadge as we see the mistake there from Green Gaming. Maybe he's just moving out of the way, but does give me a bit of twitchy bum when I see a driver on the grass like that, whether or not they've made a mistake and just going to come flicking back across the racing line. You never quite know. Let's jump into the cockpit of Wadge as he makes his moves up onto Kovkarl, takes that position back brilliantly. He's got himself placed up onto the inside, and Kovkarl was helpless, couldn't do anything against that, and Wadge is now really starting to find some pace. A 1:33.774 from him, and that's only 4 tenths away from the current fastest lap of the race. So Wadge is maybe getting a late resurgence here. He's found a second wind, and we might just see him try and make a bit of a push, maybe up for 4th place. Could be for grabs if he manages to keep up this pace. Looks as though Lecky is since back out on track. He's had his repairs done. He's just behind Wardy at the moment, with Old Smoky for company at the rear. We'll see whether or not Lecky can make some inroads and see what his lap times are like. I'm assuming those damage repairs are going to allow him to really push hard. And looks as though we might be able to take back a couple of those places, because Casey Redwood as well isn't that much further ahead of Wardy. And with 15 minutes remaining, it's certainly in sight. Back up to the guys up near the front of the pack. Al Axon still trying to keep a touching distance of Jack de Menzies, but Wadge is right behind him in 6th place. Kovkar has since fallen back quite a few seconds, it seems, after Wadge made that overtake. And we see a big mistake there from Jack de Menzies. We saw him out on one of those fortunate tarmac runoff areas, but that lead has definitely shrunk pretty largely after that mistake from him. Looked as though it was just coming out of turn 10. Maybe just let that rear end snap a little bit, and it seemed to high side him, chuck him out onto the other side of the circuit. As though all things are safe at the moment. Also, something looks as though it's happened to Wadge, who's fallen right off the back of Al here, and right into the grips once again of Kovkar. While a little bit further back, we saw this one progressing up, and it looks as though Wardy is trying to put the pressure back onto Casey Redwood, trying to get himself out of 10th and into 9th place. McToasty spotting what I've just noticed as well, that Lecky, since coming out of the pits, I think has maybe had another bit of an accident, it seems. I'm sure he wasn't that far off the back of Wardy here. Maybe I was wrong, maybe I was misled, and maybe he was just taking that position back from Old Smoky. But yeah, the Lecky, big fan of the touring cars, and his race position has been way below what he would have wanted for the last couple of races. Move back up into Wadge and have a look at his defence against Kovkar, but just going back to Lecky, actually finished in 9th place last time around. I do believe that's not even his worst finish of the season. I think the wet race at Snetterton for the 200 saw him in 14th place. In between both of those races, though, he has managed to get 2nd, which is why he's so high up the running order in 5th in the championship standings. But we just managed to catch a glimpse there of Wadge taking 6th place from Kovkar, and Wadge continues his surge forward in the final quarter of this race to try and build up on his previous mistakes. Next up is 6 seconds ahead to Al Axum, but it doesn't look as though this battle is finished yet. Kovkar is definitely not giving it up without a fight. Having a little look up the inside, thinks back on it, and just falls back in line, it seems. So that one will continue. Let's give our current race leader, in fact, current race leader who's been the race leader for the last hour and a half of on-track action pretty much here in the FMTCC, and that is Pro Fubby and his number 55 in Mochi Motorsport, Renault Megane. He's run a great race. He ran a great qualification as well. In fact, to be honest, he almost had a flawless practice session. Came out, did 1 lap in qualification, which was enough to secure him pole position, and since then he's just been cruising almost 1:33, 34, 35 second laps. Does currently hold the fastest lap of the race as well, so he is currently on for his 2nd Triple Crown of the season, and really cementing himself as the one to beat for the rest of this Touring Car Championship season. Let's not take anything away from the console in 2nd place. Let's see whether or not we can get a glimpse of him. You can just see his pink car just coming around that bend in the background. He has managed to keep touching distance, the console, onto the back of Pro Fubby for a lot of the race. He has since slipped off ever so slightly over the previous few sort of laps, but considering this is a circuit that the console openly despises, I think I'm definitely off the Christmas card list for the selection of this one. He's run it pretty well. Meanwhile, it does look as though Al Axum is under pressure once again from Jack de Menzies, as we see. I think that might have been Porsche Man once again taking it off circuit. Also, Lecky looks as though he's run alongside to let those front markers make their way through the circuit. Jack de Menzies having a little look around the outside. Al Axum was well smart onto it then not to turn in. He actually saw him hesitate to make sure they didn't wipe both of them out. Jack de Menzies now does have the inside line for the chicane, and he's going to take that position. It's just for how long is he going to be able to hold it. So the cars that you can see in the background is not the car of Kovkarl immediately. That is actually Old Smoky and Lecky, but Kovkarl isn't much further back in the distance. So any large mistakes, and Kovkarl is going to be there to snuffle up 5th or maybe even 4th place, depending on who has the incident. Looking over to this battle for 11th place. This is between Lecky and the console. You can also see Al Axon and Jack de Menzies just ahead of them. Looks as though these two guys battling it out for 11th place here. Lecky will be very keen to make sure that he doesn't lose out on any unnecessary places. Definitely had some pace, maybe just not the consistency here. And Old Smoky looking to build upon what was a fantastic finish for him last week, as he managed to bring it home in 6th position. You see there, Al Axon just running a little bit deeper. Was it? Sorry, I beg your pardon, it was Old Smoky. I just caught the green as I was looking down to my telemetry board. It was in fact Old Smoky. So Lecky now moves pretty clear in 11th place. He also moves past the air bubbles livery of Al Axon there. Got plenty of pace, doesn't want to get held back anymore. But Lecky's going to pretty much hold to remain in 11th place. He certainly isn't going to be able to build upon that. Get back up to a battle which has been on and off again many times throughout this race. It's the battle between Kovkarl and Wadge here for 6th place. Looks as though Wadge has since fallen right back off it again. He was very, very close into the run-up of the chicane. But Kovkarl is also piling on the pressure. As you can see, Al Axon and Jack de Menzies as well, just ahead of Old Smoky. Old Smoky is going to have to get out of the way here under blue flags. It looks as though he does so at the nearest available opportunity. So the race is now on for 4th place. It's very, very tight indeed. In fact, let's jump into the onboard camera of Kovkarl. So that is Lecky that you can see right at the very front of this, but the next two cars along is Jack de Menzies and Al Axon for 4th and 5th position. Kovkarl will be desperate to try and take at least one of those, preferably both of them, by the end of the race. 7.5 minutes remaining on this one. All to play for Kovkarl for sure. And it's a case of holding on to what you've got for Jack de Menzies. See a little bit of a mistake there. A bit of a counter correction from Al Axon. And that just showed Kovkarl making, a quarter of a car length, which could be significant come the end of this race. Looking at the lap times, you can see there the lap times of Lecky are now starting to get absolutely nailed on. 1:35s from him. Still not going to be enough. He finds himself 47 seconds back behind Wardy in 10th place, but might be able to try and take away that fastest lap from Pro Fubby if he really pushes himself hard and takes some risks here. So as the countdown timer reaches 6.5 minutes, lap 25 of Oschersleben A course, which is the largest GP circuit that they have here. It's actually quite a recent track, this one. Opened up in 1997, very, very costly as well, 58 million euros, but really fits the lay of the land. They really make good use of the undulating hills here. Also add in the technical elements of those raised curbs, very, very popular for the DTMs and other domestic races in the German calendar. Has hosted the likes of Formula 3000 and some superbike races as well, I believe, but not anymore. Domestic only, except for the Flux Motorsport Touring Car Championship. It looks as though Jack de Menzies has been able to build up a little 2-second buffer, but Al Axon needs to try and keep on the back of Kovkarl if he's going to try and make it up. Kovkarl taking that position in the last lap. As I was whittering on about this fantastic circuit. Seeing just making his way past Lecky. I think Lecky had to, although he had plenty of pace, had to get out of the way under those blue flag conditions from the guys ahead of him. And that is one of the unfortunate positions that you put in when you've got plenty of pace, but you're stuck as a backmarker under blue flag conditions. Reaches a certain point, you've just got to let the cars through, no matter how quick you think that you can take it. So as we count down through the final 5 minutes here, it's been a great race from this man in the Mochi. Renault Megane Pro Fubby has absolutely dominated these last two races. Fantastic race at Silverstone, and now it looks as though he's here to conquer the two German stops that we have before we head on over to Barcelona for race 7, and then the final race of the season. We really leapfrog into spring with a trip into the Azure Coast for the Monaco GP circuit, which is going to be very, very taxing indeed for these little touring cars. Going to be a great race, that one, and to make sure that you don't miss it, be sure to hit the subscribe button and make sure that you hit the bell icon to ensure that notifications are on for all of our races. We will be bringing you all 7 of this week's races. Unfortunately, big apologies if you were tuned in ready and waiting for last week. Due to an issue with the PlayStation Network and Project Cars 2, we were unable to bring you any of the races after the GTE at Brands Hatch. Little mistake there. I just wonder whether Pro Fubby's tyres are starting to struggle a little bit. We can see the pace just dipping away from him. Maybe he's just taking it easy for the final 3.5 minutes. He knows that he's pretty much got this one in the bag and doesn't want to take any undue risk. So just a little reminder of what we've got to bring you this week. The GT1s on Thursday head to Road America for the GP circuit there. Lecky 2000 and McToasty will be bringing you all of the action on track. I'll be out on track as well, so give me a wave as I pass on by. Then the GTE's Friday night Eastern Standard Time for Road America, followed by the LMP2's Saturday 8 PM UK time as they take on Bathurst. That's going to be brought to you around about 3 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern Standard Time, so we haven't got much else on this weekend. To all of our American cousins, tune in for that one. It's going to be an absolute cracker. Giacomo bringing you all of the action on track there. Then the Indies head on over on Saturday evening 8 PM Eastern Standard Time to the Road America. Going to be very tricky for those Indy cars. Then the GT3s hosted by McToasty and the Console. They take it around Sportsland Sugo this Sunday 8 PM UK time, 3 PM Eastern Standard. And then Daytona for a night race in the stock cars. That is Sunday evening 8 PM Eastern Standard Time, around about 1 PM if you're watching here in the UK. Please adjust to your local time zones, and if you can't make any of the live streams, don't worry, we will be bringing them and filing them away on our YouTube channel, and our video team will be working on the highlights, 15-minute roundups for you, so you can slot up a catch-up on all of the action into your lunch break, or maybe a little cheeky comfort break. Just beware, if you are going to use the phone in the bath, please make sure it's propped up safely. You don't want to be getting too excited and dropping it in there. So that's what we've got to bring this week. Next week in the touring cars, we're going to be heading over to the Nürburgring for the second stop here in Germany. It's going to be the sprint circuit, and this man here, Pro Fubby, is going to look to really secure his championship potential with another win there. Looks as though he's certainly got this one in the bag. He's still holding on to the fastest lap. As we enter the final minute, there is going to be another lap of this circuit left. Let's bring up the timing boards. Let's have a look at those penalties and see how they've stacked up. So it looks as though the guys at the front have actually managed to avoid it. Huge props to Spankmeyer and Kovkarl keeping the nose clean on what is a very tricky circuit for the race director. Does look as though quite a few running down the order. Does look as though Lecky's 8-second penalty isn't going to matter too much though, as Old Smoky has 3 seconds, and even without that, Lecky would still finish in that 11th position. We'll check up on all the standings come the end of this race, but for now it's all down to this man, Pro Fubby. What a race it's been from start to finish, holding on to top spot The console has been able to rein in these last couple of laps. I do wonder whether or not Pro Fubby's tyres are just starting to give away a little bit. Could also be tactical for sure. And the countdown timer is done. This will be the final lap of the race. But yeah, Pro Fubby has certainly run his own, got ahead of the action thanks to a fantastic qualifying lap, which nobody could even get close to matching. I think the console was 7/10 off the qualification time of Pro Fubby, which doesn't sound like much, but considering how quick these two fellas are, it's almost an eternity. And since then, he's come under minor bouts of pressure very early on, and since then he's just been able to build upon what has been a pretty poignant lead. So he will remain at the top of the standings table come the end of this race, and he is going to have an even bigger buffer should he manage to retain the fastest lap. He is already going to get the bonus point for pole position, but he's also looking pretty tight as well for the fastest lap of the race. I think it was achieved in lap 2. But he is your race winner here at Oschersleben. Pro Fubby takes the victory. Not too far behind is the console in the end. He steps up, takes second place, and Spankmeyer about to secure his third podium in his in the last two races. His second podium in the last two races, and a great run from him. We saw him jostling around 6th, 5th, 4th, then 3rd position after a bit of a gift. He comes across the line to secure that podium. Jack de Menzies, meanwhile, still holding off Kovkarl. This one's going to be down to who's got the most penalties, I believe. But Jack de Menzies is going to cross the line in 4th position. Kovkarl in 5th, followed by Lecky 2000 there. Al Axon has since crossed the line. He's actually jumped up past Jack de Menzies. We will get this confirmed in around about 70 seconds time when the race is all done with. Wadge made a big late surge, but I think that hardware issue with his brake pedal has just been a little bit too much, and in whatever pace he's been able to build upon throughout the race, he's lost. Subsequently, we see him there, his brakes are actually stuck on once again, and that has been the issue throughout this race for him. Does come across the line in 7th place though, and it looks as though despite any penalties he's going to be very safe from the 8th place of Wardy. Wardy though is under increased pressure. Oh, as the two come together, it seems, from DJ Leggy in the BMW. Across the line, let's see what happens. It is actually Wardy's position in the end. DJ Leggy finishes up in 9th place. Let's have a look through the final running order. Can confirm now that that Pro Fubby gets the fastest lap, so another Triple Crown race weekend. Gets both race and the fastest lap from Pro Fubby. The console comes up in 2nd place, a total of 10 seconds gap after the penalty was applied. Spankmeyer in 3rd for another podium, and really securing himself in the mix for this for a strong finish in the FMTCC. Kovkarl does enough for 4th place. Did actually finish behind Jack de Menzies, but due to that 13-second penalty, Jack de Menzies drops all the way down to 6th behind Al Axon. Wadge finishes up in 7th place despite his 9-second penalty, and then Wardy ahead of DJ Leggy in the end. As we saw the two coming together, there might well be a steward's inquiry over that, but for now he remains in 8th place ahead of DJ Leggy. Redwood finishes in 10th place ahead of Lecky in the end, and then Old Smoky in 12th, followed by Green Gaming. Porsche Man in 14th, and Deadly Hawk crossing the line in 15th. So that is all for Oschersleben. As I mentioned, we will be bringing you some more touring car action next Tuesday with myself live 8 p.m. UK time, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Next race, of course, is Nürburgring Sprint. Lecky will be seeing you in the box as well for the GT1s. And that reminder as well, if you want to find out more information about what we do, or perhaps you want to join our Discord. Discord is a completely free app. You can use it on pretty much every device in the world at the moment. And if you want to join up and be part of this fantastic community, head on over to FluxMotorsport.com and you'll find all of the information that you need on the website, as well as our new merchandise store. And from me, that is all for this Tuesday. really look forward to next week and seeing what happens in the touring car. But of course, if you want to make sure you don't miss out on any of the action, do be sure to follow us on all of our social media links. Just search for Flux Motorsport, or alternatively, you'll be able to find the links through the website as well. I've been Murphy. I'm going to sign off for the evening, and I'll see you on track on Thursday for the GT1s with Lecky and McToasty. Take care of everyone and have a good week ahead.